My name is Sundip Arora. I work for Kaminario. I'm a senior manager for their product marketing group. We are based out of Boston. Like I said, we're really fortunate to have 3 customers. It was great of you guys to come up and talk to the folks at the Gartner conference. So I will ask you guys to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, what your company does.
My name is Fred Roque. I'm the manager of data center operations for a company that does electronic parts catalogs for the automotive, power, and agriculture industry.
I'm Ken Lawrence, Senior Vice President of IT and Security for a company called ZeroChaos in downtown Orlando. And what we do is staffing. It's a little different than traditional staffing, but we have around 60,000 contingent workers, and we're in like 40-something countries.
Ernie Satterthwaite, I'm the CIO for Scentsy. We're a privately held company out in Boise, Idaho, and really our products you will see through our consultants, about 140,000 consultants worldwide that mostly in the fragrance market.
So very quickly, Kaminario at a glance, we are an all-flash startup company of sorts because we are privately held. We've been in production of an all-flash device. Our DNA is all-flash for about 5 years now. 5th generation of the product. Company was founded in Israel, now headquartered in Boston. We have offices all over the world. Lots of customers in plenty of spaces, mostly software as a service companies. About 60% of our revenues comes from SaaS companies. One of the fastest growing all-flash storage companies in the world. Like I said, it's really mature. It's generation 5th of the product. Support centers both in US and EMEA, and we've got a bunch of investors, as you can see up there. Customers span many industries: financial services, healthcare. SaaS just happens to be the customer base that we've become the go-to vendor for. A lot of that has to do with the idea that you need flexible scale up and out. And then we'll talk about some of the value adds, but we've got customers across all use cases and all industries. What do you think in your organization is the definition of modern applications, and what do you think is the infrastructure required to run so-called modern applications?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So we're kind of a mixed shop. We do back office, e-commerce, and this party planning thing that goes on. So for me, scalability and IOP is really important. We'll go from somewhere around 2,000 concurrent users to 50,000 in a day over an hour period. And so that, as far as storage, it was really important to us that we had that capability. We also are sitting right now at about 2.7 petabytes of information. We haven't thrown anything out yet. We're only 12 years, we're 12 years old.
The sales guys don't like him much.
So, scalability was really important from that aspect until we changed how we're going to do our business. We needed to be able to do it quickly and without any kind of real downtime.
That makes a lot of sense. The idea that you wanted table stakes change from a performance point of view, but like you said, things all of a sudden you go from 5,000 IOPS to 100,000 IOPS. Okay. Absolutely. What about you, Ken? If you wouldn't mind describing where you use all flash today, and what kind of applications would you categorize under this modern application structure?
Okay. So ZeroChaos has a SaaS application that's hosted here in New Jersey, and it's also hosted over in London. So for us, the issue was more around SQL and our ability to deliver those queries and that information back to our customers very quickly. Our situation is maybe a little bit different than most in that we've collapsed everything into a completely hyper-converged platform. So we no longer have traditional server SAN, because that, number one, it just, from a cost perspective, it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
And we never got the performance that we wanted. I could go out and I could buy a different piece of EMC gear every other week, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be no further than I am, than when I started, right? So for us, it was, again, all around performance. We run our CRM, we run BI, and from a BI perspective, we have to be able to deliver those on-time analytics to our customers globally, and they're looking for 5 to 10 minute sort of turnaround in that. So everything now is back-ended by Kaminario, and we've seen latency just go into the milliseconds.
Wow.
So
Okay.
for us, it's been a great journey.
Okay, so then maybe I'll switch gears a little bit, and Fred, maybe I'll come to you, and what I do want to do is talk about your journey so far to All Flash, and I want to make sure that the people who are looking at All Flash in the audience understand what process you went through in terms of evaluating All Flash solutions, the business drivers to get you there, and then maybe talk about one thing you would have done differently if you had the chance. Except, don't say not by Kaminario. Anything else? Because like I like to say, you've made that leap of faith. Yep. You've made the jump. You're all in now. And what was that process like? I'm sure there were jitters.
So we started off back in early 2014, and we were renegotiating contracts with our customers. We publish their data and present that to them online. They wanted the turnaround time to be reduced, and that was part of the contract.
Okay.
At the current time, it was taking anywhere from 5 to 7 days to turn the data around, and they wanted that reduced by half. We thought really the only way to do this is reduce the latency. We use a homegrown publishing application that we take the data in, we publish it, normalize it, put it into an Oracle database, and then present that back out to our customers. We went through, we figured All Flash is the best way to go, so we went through and talked to all the different vendors. Many of them are out here. Some of them are not here anymore. But basically, the features and functionality were very similar amongst all of them. Kaminario, when we talked to them, they said, we'll bring an array out and set that up and let you POC it. We set that array up. We did our first POC test run, reduced our publishing time anywhere from 60 to 70% just by putting it on All Flash.
Okay.
We ended up buying that array, and we bought 2 more. And we've actually gone to moving all of our application tier. So at first we were looking at just database, but we moved all the application tier, which was running on Sun Solaris. We moved it to virtualized environment, put that on Kaminario, and it gave us further benefit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the one thing now that you've gone through the process that you may have done differently?
Bought it a lot sooner.
Okay, that's awesome. That's cool. So Ken, I'm going to come to you if you don't mind and talk to us how you were able to go and convince internally the stakeholders in your company that this was a cost-effective move from traditional spinning drive solution to an all-flash solution.
Yeah, so it wasn't terribly difficult because much the same, we did a POC with a lot of the vendors out here,
okay.
Right? And what I did was I took that information back to the CEO, back to the CFO, and said, hey, here's how we're performing today. Here are the 3 different vendors that we looked at. We ran iometer tests and all of the kind of stuff, right? And when just simply looking at the graphs on our ERP, when they looked at that, it was, at that point, the conversation was pretty much over.
Okay.
Right? So it wasn't, I didn't have to do tons of upselling because we had gone through the process and walking them through it, which they're typically not technical guys, but they understand latency and they can see it in the graphs.
Yeah.
And once we had that conversation, it was like, okay, let's start working on pricing and how quickly can we move.
It makes sense.
So
Okay.
it's pretty easy.
That's good to hear. And Ernie, how about you? About the same process, the way you went about it?
Yeah, ours was maybe a little bit different, and we were on a solid, in fact, almost 100% EMC solution for years, and our V-blocks were coming up for maintenance and really had reached that end-of-life piece, and really the cost to support those devices was extreme. And so we always look at upgrading our environment, whether it's our people or our process or our equipment, when it comes time to the next step up. So we did a POC, we brought in EMC, of course, we brought in Pure, and we brought in Kaminario. And at the end of the day, after all the statistical analysis and that, we really felt that Kaminario really fit our company. We're an entrepreneurial company. That's where this company's at, and the support that we got was unbelievable. We also ended up buying our POC device, and now we have 4 K2s in the environment.
Okay.
So.
I do want to talk about a step change in business. And Fred, I appreciate what you said about taking something that would take a week to publish down to 48 hours. That's clearly a step change, right? And that's obviously allowed you to do more with your business in the past. But Ken, What about your business? Do you see any step changes in the way people are moving away from traditional to all flash, and where do you see that going in the future?
Well, I can tell you that we've had a few people come in since we've made this move, just local folks around the Orlando area just trying to figure out what we were doing and why. And flash is the way they're going to go, right? Okay. There's no question about that. But they ask us what the separators are. What's the differentiator between one and the other? And one of the things we liked about the Kaminario solution was our ability to dedupe and compress what we wanted.
Okay.
Right? Wasn't always on. And when you start talking to your development teams, and there's certain things around SQL, certain tables, certain things that they're very concerned about, and we give them the ability now to say, okay, we can not touch that, but we can do all of these other things, right? To us, that's a powerful story, right? I talk to all the other vendors, and I'm like, hey, is it always on, or how can I kind of mesh this together?
So you're talking about the idea that you can turn off deduplication.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so that helps in performance for the database.
It does. It helps a tremendous amount. And again, when we talk about BI, which data is everything today, right? We need to be able, we're a fast food society, right? And we want to be able to consume things quickly. Yeah. So this certainly, by putting this platform in, certainly took us to a point where now we've cut that refresh time, which used to be somewhere around 20, 25 minutes, and change data is around 5 minutes.
Wow, okay.
Right, so for customers, it's an awesome story.
I want to talk to you, Ernie, since I know you run an organization, you've got plenty of people who are working on the Kaminario, and I know you have NetApp as well, other arrays as well. I want to understand, one, how much data do you have, or how much storage you actually have? How many FTEs do you have managing that storage?
So today we have 2.7 petabytes of data, and I've got 2 storage folks on staff. One of the moves to Kaminario was really ease of maintenance. Before, if you've worked with the EMC side of the house, I had a lot more talent working to perform the same duties as that. But a simple example of this is a normal flash. We have 5 lower environments from our production. In those 5 lower environments, we could refresh 1 a day. So it was a good solid 8 hours to refresh that environment. We do that now within minutes.
Okay.
So that added a lot of flexibility to our developers, and ultimately we're going to go to a self-serve model, including storage, for the development staff.
Explain that self-serve model. What do you mean?
Yeah, so the developers will spin up an environment temporarily to do some kind of testing or do something specialized. We want them to be able to also spin up their storage at the same time.
Oh, interesting. So almost like a DevOps operation.
Absolutely.
With persistent storage in the backend. Okay, that's great. What about you guys? Is there anything that you could add to how much storage you're managing, or who's managing it, how it's changed over time? Fred, maybe?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I've got 2 storage engineers, and the ease, like you said, it's the monitoring, the pane. It's like a one pane that you look at, and it tells you everything, what your IOPS are, what your capacity is. It's just the simplicity of it. We're a Hitachi shop. Other is our old disk, and we had to send people off to specialized classes to learn how to manage that array. Yeah. And this is just so much easier.
Flash is evolving faster than you can imagine. Kaminario, we've been at the forefront of looking at what is next, how we can move to it, migrate to it. For example, I said Kaminario's IP is entirely in the software. The hardware is best of breed commodity hardware. We should be able to move that software appliance into a newer hardware model as it comes out. So the 4 things we think are driving the future of the data center, and then I want each one of your opinion, if you don't mind, as to how you're building your strategies around what's changing in the infrastructure, especially as it relates to storage. First one is hardware innovation that is driving the next generation of the enterprise storage device. The idea that non-volatile memory, NVMe extensions, the non-volatile memory, fabrics in the backend, NVM-connected drive shells, moving to the next evolution of NAND storage, continues to drive the prices of SSD flash storage down. Right? This is happening at an alarming rate of change today. If you were in the Gartner session yesterday, which was about the storage strategies for 2020, you heard Roger Cox say that you need to make sure that any vendor you look at purchasing storage from today understands the move to NVMe, and you are clearly able to hear them articulate how that happens, right? That's very important, number one. Number two is this concept of what we are calling app-savvy storage. Storage devices, with their software layers, have become smarter and smarter and smarter. So much so that not only can they understand the metrics from the storage device itself, also from the host, the network layer, and the server layer. But more so, we are taking the lead in making storage smarter for the applications themselves. Clarity is a cloud-based elastic database platform which uses big data analytics on the data that your arrays are sending home. Right? The data we get from Scentsy, the data we get from ZeroChaos, we collect about 1 billion points per day of metrics and data points from across our entire install base. It's not a big deal. A lot of vendors collect a lot of points of metrics. What is a big deal is what we do with that data. What we're doing is we are running big data analytics on that to create both customer management processes. For example, if you have an issue, you call up, it automates the creation of a case in the back end, it automates the creation of a alert to the customers themselves, but more importantly, it's doing something we call prescriptive analytics. Right? Looking at usage patterns, looking at the hardware itself, understanding things like when we think that drive will ultimately wear out, when we think that shelf may have a failure, other kinds of analytics that gives us insight to your usage of that array, and then building processes and alerts based on that. So with that, I'm going to come to the panel here. And if you wouldn't mind, address 3 main questions around this. Right? One is, what is your overall strategy? How do you go about building a strategy that allows you to build a data center for the future? 2 is, what do you see between hyper-converged and all-flash? Where do you think? And I think it's more nuanced than one over the other. I think it's going to be a complex set of technologies in the data center, but I would love to hear your opinions on it. And third is, what about this concept of infrastructure as a service versus platform as a service, on-prem versus off-prem cloud or a hybrid cloud model? How does this all play? It's a complex time to be in a data center management business. I'll start with you, Ken.
So again, for us, we're already hyper-converged. And so I feel that as new players come into the marketplace, and some of the folks who are there already, they're beginning to build the flash storage into their boxes already. But I think that's only part of it. I think there's some intelligence that has to be built into the storage as well. Okay. Right? And I think that's the separator between what Kaminario brings to the table. And we did the same thing. We did Pure, we did NextGen, we did Nimble, we did all of those, right? Yeah. And then we had the old traditional NetApp, and we had all of that stuff, right? So as we continue to build out, and we're building a new data center in Poland, and we're probably going to build one in Singapore here sometime before the end of the year. So as we continue to build out, we know that we're going to use a hyper-converged platform. It just makes sense. It no longer makes sense to have storage on the back end and then just commodity hardware on the front end, right? If you want to be able to scale, and you want to think long-term, and you want to have predictable performance as well as predictable cost, then I think this is the way that data centers are going to go. Okay.
And what about from a hardware evolution point of view? Mm-hmm. Where do you see that going, especially for all-flash? Do you see the role of NVMe growing?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the direction we're going to go, right? And again, I would challenge folks as they're kind of going through this sort of evaluation, talk to whoever it is you're talking to, ask them where they are in this space. Yeah. Right? Are they ready for tomorrow? Because if we're not ready for tomorrow gets here pretty quick. Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is have to have that tough conversation with your CFO or your CEO about, boy, we're not quite there yet, right?
Okay. Makes sense.
So.
Yeah. What about you, Ernie?
Pretty much what Ken said. I think the only difference for us would be so today all of our data centers are domestic, and as we expand out across the world, or we look at multi-tenancy, because of the nature of our owners, meaning that they spin up entrepreneurial ideas weekly, literally weekly. We have multiple companies that we support besides Scentsy itself. We're looking at that technology, but I would also agree with Ken that we'll be moving off all of our disk and going flash and probably as soon as we can.
What's the breakdown of flash versus disk today?
So 1.5 on flash and 1.2 spinning disk today.
Okay, so you're well on your way to an all-flash data center. So it's
Absolutely.
not, it's in the realm of reach.
Yeah, as prices continue to drop, as
Yeah.
they will,
Okay.
we'll move over.
Awesome. What about you, Fred?
We're definitely going to be moving away from spinning disk. Any new disk purchases are going to be all flash.
Okay.
We really like the concept of being able to scale out. So obviously, we're already planning for a purchase next year to scale out our existing publishing environment. As for hyperconverged, we're not really there yet, but it is definitely something that we're looking at. The future of our data center is probably going to be moving hosting to cloud, but
Okay.
publishing has to stay where we're at. It
Yeah.
has to stay in our facility.
Well, guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming, and hopefully this was valuable for you guys. And thank you so much for the panel. Thank you.